So let's move on to our offseason tier list where we are going to be grading all of the projected playoff teams on their offseason. So,
Let's start with an easy one, the Thunder, because I
okay,
feel
yeah.
like theirs is pretty solidly S tier.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than
Giddy for
exchanging
Caruso.
roles for potentially better fits and filling some needs.
I do have a question about the Thunder for you, Asher. Do you
Sure.
think that, not to say that like Giddy was like the best fit for this, but in
Mhm.
trading Giddy for Caruso, they didn't really replace Giddy's playmaking value on that team. And we did see in that Mavs series that when the Thunder, had to take Giddy out of the starting lineup, there was a clear, drop off in like ball movement, and Shea had to take on a much bigger ball handling burden. Do you think that that's going to the fact that they didn't replace that in any way this off season? They have Topic, but he's going to be out this year with
Yeah.
the ACL. Is that going to hinder their progression as a team at all this season?
No, I don't think Giddy was actually that good of a playmaker. Um,
Mhm.
I think he's just like a guy who could pass, and they didn't have like a ton of those guys, I guess. But like J Dub is a good playmaker, Shea's a good playmaker, Isaiah Hartenstein is a good playmaker, especially for a center. Like
Right,
they
that
have
will take
guys.
some of that burden off.
Yeah, like
So
I, also Giddy was probably the worst rotation player in the playoffs last year. Literally, anytime they subbed him in, the Mavs or Pelicans would go on a run. Anytime they subbed him out, the Thunder would go on a run. So it was basically dictated. Are you winning the series? Are you playing Josh Giddey? Yes, then you're not winning. If you're not playing Josh Giddey, you're winning. So like,
until they got to the Mavs.
well, no, Giddey, like whenever he was subbed on, Mavs would go on huge runs, and like
I think that
like
that had more to do with whether Lively was on the floor or not.
maybe, but I Giddey is just a detriment to any good basketball. So I think getting rid of him in itself, even if you just traded him for a second round pick, would have helped this team, let alone trading him for Alex Caruso.
Yeah, there was like some situational, like just matchups where you were debating how you were going to play Giddy. Like that was a topic for
Yeah,
them all playoffs. So
for sure.
I'm trying to see. Well, I
You
guess.
should pick your favorite team, the Golden State Warriors.
Okay, let's go with the
You don't have
Warriors.
to do that.
The Warriors, obviously, they traded. Is there an F tier? No, I don't know. Where would I put them, honestly?
So they lost Klay Thompson, right?
Yeah.
Well, they managed to get a sign and trade done with the Mavs, but they didn't get like a ton back in that deal. But they got off of his money, let them get under the first apron. I think they were under the luxury tax for a time, but now they're just under the first apron. They were able to get Buddy Healed, right, with
Mhm.
their mid-level exception. Is that right?
Yep.
And then I forgot they got DeAnthony Melton as well.
Yep.
And
Melton was the mid-level. Buddy Hield was through
right,
a sign and trade, if I remember correctly.
was a sign and trade with
Yeah.
Philly. That's
and,
right.
And then they also got Kyle Anderson.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I mean, I was
He's
on
kind of
the
their backup Draymond
I was on the train of
offensively.
they needed
Yeah.
to move off of the original core and really try to upgrade around Steph. And
Mhm.
I'm not a big Kyle Anderson fan. I think D'Anthony Melton can be okay. And then Healed, I think it's fine. I guess if he can shoot, that's what they want. Have him in C right now, but do you want to push him up to somewhere?
No, because they're wasting Steph, like the tail end of Steph's, I don't know, prime.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how
Yeah.
to talk about the primes of these like old guys that are still just like lightning on any given night.
Yeah, Buddy Hield is he's a fine replacement for 2023 Klay Thompson. It's not,
Yeah.
prime Klay Thompson. His defense was shit anyways, so like replacing him with another shit defender but a really good shooter, it'll probably be
Who
fine.
fits into their system, right? Because
Yeah.
there probably isn't a better, like if you're going to pick a bargain Clay replacement, but he's probably as good as it gets to fit into the Golden State Warriors system because he knows how to play in a react offense, probably, right?
Yeah, and then the thing about D'Anthony Melton is his back is fucked. Like He has a bad history of back injuries. He's pretty injury prone in general. When he plays, he's pretty good, but like I don't know how much he'll actually end up playing. Then Kyle Anderson is bad. Kyle Anderson is just an actively bad player. He provides all the negatives that Draymond does without providing any of the positives that Draymond has. He's not a particularly great defender. He's like a solid enough defender. Like he's not a bad defender, but he's not anywhere close to the level Draymond is. And then his shot is somehow uglier than Draymond's, way slower. And he doesn't provide the playmaking that Draymond does. He's like
I think he provides the playmaking that Draymond does.
I mean, he provides playmaking, but not to the level Draymond does.
Yeah,
Draymond is
he was effectively the Wolves' backup point guard last year.
Yeah, but like Draymond is a very, very good playmaker. Kyle Anderson is Kyle Anderson.
Yeah.
If you listen to Wolves fans during the Nuggets series, they would have you believe Kyle Anderson played great defense on Jokic. So
they did. I thought Wolves fans were complaining about slow-mo like all of last season.
They were.
So.
They were.
Yeah, but there was after game 2 or something when the Nuggets completely melted down, they were like, Kyle Anderson, good job. Anyway, let's go into the Mavs then, since they're the ones who got Clay.
Yeah, let's talk about the Mavs. I actually think they had an A-tier offseason in well, I'm gonna give them an A. We can argue this, but so they lost Derrick Jones Jr. They didn't re-sign him. Basically, they had the option to, but they ended up going with Najee Marshall, using their mid-level exception to get him instead. They effectively replaced Tim Hardaway Jr. with Klay Thompson, which, given where both of those guys were defensively, I think is actually an upgrade defensively off of last season, but not by a lot. And then offensively, another guy who can catch and shoot, a guy who's probably going to command quite a bit more gravity than Tim Hardaway Jr. And is a bit more consistent as a shooter. They take the same kinds of ridiculous shots. So we're going to see, how that works out with Klay Thompson next season. I don't quite know how to grade, how to incorporate like the moves they made at the trade deadline. Because they weren't during the season. They were obviously home runs. The only thing keeping this from an S for me is, I don't know, maybe it's just like Mavs bias or something, but I have to give them an A because I think that everything they did was a straightforward upgrade, and they're not going to have a ton of questions about like how they play next season. It's really more, can they keep up like the pace that they did, say, post-trade deadline, particularly defensively? I actually have more questions about their offense, or I did post-trade deadline, so I'm curious if they're able to kind of get it back up to where that offensive ceiling was throughout most of the rest of the season before they put a lot more emphasis on these more defensively oriented pieces. But what do you guys think of that?
I disagree pretty heavily on how good this offseason was. I would probably have them in C tier. I don't like the Klay signing really because I assume he's going to be the starter at the 3 rather than Najee Marshall.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be.
Or at least he's closing games because they gave him a lot of money, and also Klay has fairly sizable like pride from what I can glean. I don't think he would accept a like bench role.
6-man role.
That's probably why he left the Warriors, because the Warriors didn't want to give him like they started playing pods over him. So if that's the case,
too late, might I?
if that's the case, may I ask, who the fuck are they guarding? Because they will be starting Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, and Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is a bad defender. Their point of attack guy is PJ Washington in that lineup. And PJ is like good on forwards. He should not be your point of attack guy. And then like Najee Marshall, I like Najee Marshall. I don't think they're a bad team or anything, but I don't think they got better. I think they got worse probably because of the Klay Thompson signing and like what that means probably for their rotations. And then if he gets benched, their locker room.
Yeah.
You make a good point about if he's starting or coming off the bench. Well, I know you have very specific Klay Thompson thoughts, so why don't you chime in?
Well, I was low on it too. I was like, Klay is almost out of the league. Like, I'm sorry. Like, his 3-point shot, I guess, can still be good. I'm definitely underrating him on that, but I was like ready to just be done with Klay as a player.
My thing is that he can't make a shot from like anywhere else. Like whenever you ran him off the line, I'm like, is he gonna finish this at the rim? I don't think so. Is he gonna make this midi? I don't think so. So when you don't trap, because he's actually good at like passing out of those traps to to the big or whatever it is off a DHO or coming off a pin down. But if you don't do that, it looks really rough, and the defense is just like we've talked about how relentlessly Mike Brown was targeting Klay Thompson in that play-in game between the Kings and the Warriors a lot.
Yeah.
So
if
he is starting, this actually could go really south really fast.
Yeah, my number one concern with the Mavs was their defense, and just like Clay's not cutting it, and Najee Marshall can kind of replace Derrick Jones Jr., but I really liked how he played on defense, and so it's like they're just kind of
Najee Marshall's a little bit more versatile because of the size, but if he's not starting and he's not getting an opportunity to be the primary on all those assignments, okay, I'll downgrade it to B. We'll take the compromise.
We'll just put it in B because it kind of depends on some of their decisions and how bad or good Clay is.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to make Asher rate the Milwaukee Bucks offseason.
Let's see. They signed
Taurean Prince,
Gary Trent, DeLon Wright.
Oh, yeah, and Gary Trent. Like wingy shooting guards.
Probably B. I think they got better on the margins, but also I really think they screwed up the draft. I don't get the AJ Johnson pick at all.
Yeah.
And John Horst has never been a good drafter. So I think they got better role players. I think that people are overrating Gary Trent. I don't think Gary Trent is actually that good. But DeLon Wright is a good addition. I think Gary Trent does add shooting, but he's basically just a Malik Beasley replacement. And then Taurean Prince is like good if you're playing the Nuggets, and then he's fine everywhere else. He's a fine like regular season innings eater forward.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with that. I think especially like if you're grading them on a curve, given the limit, like they could only sign minimums. Like these were the tools that they had. They had minimums in the draft. They draft big fat question mark. I don't really get it, but the minimums I think all kind of helped them, especially because the role players they had, particularly on the wing, were not great. Although I like Malik Beasley is arguably at least as good as all the guys that they signed. So not just retaining him was maybe like, I don't know. Maybe they're just like we just know that the Dame Malik backcourt doesn't work, so we have to change this up. Okay. Will do the Clippers.
I mean the Clippers, I'm gonna go, like D or C. Because I mean, look, like as you can speculate about Paul George and where he's at, but like just letting him go for nothing, I think looks bad on them as an organization. It's not the moves you want to make, but I wanted the PG and Kawhi thing to end. I think that was the end of that road. It's just a matter of like what can they really do to go forward, and they definitely dodged the second apron, which is cool. I don't know.
Well, they were in it already. They'd been in it for I think 2 seasons. Or not 2 seasons because it didn't exist before last, but they effectively were a second apron team the year before. And last year they had gotten rid of Eric Gordon, which saved like $50 million in luxury taxes. They were paying more in luxury tax than on his contract.
Yeah, it was like 50-60 million.
Yeah. So they also signed Chris Dunn. They signed Derrick Jones Jr. with their mid-level exception.
Yeah, I mean,
did they draft anybody?
They were kind of in a hard place with Paul George.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys see it. Wasn't there like some kind of trade they were maybe going to make with Golden State with PG or something?
They were in talks, but I think they just didn't want to take on like Wiggins' contract, which can you blame them? And then it was like they wanted one of Pods or Kuminga, I think it was, and the Warriors just didn't want to part with any of their young guys. At a certain point, you're like, would you rather have Andrew Wiggins or would you rather have nothing? And then, also I think they were offered Wiggins, Moody, like a pick. So I probably would have taken that if I were them, because you need all the picks you can get if you're LA.
Yeah.
But also, they're just going to be stuck in no man's land for the next couple of seasons. They have Kawhi, they have Harden, they have a bunch of guys. They don't have any young talent really to speak of.
Right, and they re-signed Batum. That was the other. I knew they had one more defensive.
Yeah, and they also became a prison yard basketball team with a lot of the signings they made.
It's hard to know because this seems like kind of like a future forward thing, I guess. It's like they now have to go a new direction, which is going to take some time. I don't expect them to be like contending. I see them as kind of like a play-in team right now, at least.
I don't even know if they make the play-in.
Yeah, maybe they don't even make that.
We'll see. It depends on Kawhi's health. I don't know how much worse they're going to be if a miracle happens and Kawhi's healthy the entire season, kind of thing.
I think still pretty significantly worse. They lost Paul George for nothing. They didn't replace him with really anything.
Nope, just Chris Dunn, who was someone that's floated around for the Nuggets too.
Yep, CT Fazio special.
C. I think C is fine because losing Paul George for nothing, you can't get much higher than that. But I do think that every other thing they did was like fine. Like I think they've got a bunch of like role players. All
right, well let's go with the team that got KCP and just go PG. The team that got PG was the Sixers. So
all right, Philadelphia 76ers. I'm gonna give them an A. They got Paul George. Got Embiid, another kind of 2A, 2B kind of guy, depending on how you see current Paul George. They got him a backup center. They got Caleb Martin, so now they have a real kind of defensive wing. The reason this isn't an S actually is because I think that Caleb Martin is the best defender on. Well, Paul George is the best defender on that team, but I don't think he's going to be taking on the primary assignments, and also don't want to put that kind of stress on him. I mean perimeter.
Okay.
Perimeter defender. And they still don't believe in like defensive, like real, like high level defensive wings and forwards, as they haven't for the last couple of seasons. Caleb Martin is a question mark. And even with him, like he's not really a 4. He just like isn't a super high level shooter. And so he was playing a 4 for the Miami Heat. Also they didn't have other bigs, but they did let him go. So I'm going to give them an A because I think they did pretty much as good as they could besides getting KCP. I think that would have been, really nice to have next to Tyrese Maxey. But given the size that they added in the backcourt, like they have the option of like a Maxey and Paul George backcourt instead of, making PG necessarily play small forward all the time. They also got Reggie Jackson after he got bought out by the Hornets, right? And they retained Kyle Lowry as well, Philadelphia kid. So they have a couple of legitimate backup point guard options as well. But there's still just big question marks about this team because of really the top end stars, but also I think there are some defensive holes that teams in the East in particular can take advantage of. Yeah, so I'm gonna give them an A. What do you guys think?
I'd probably give them an S. I think they got the best free agent available. I think they got a lot of good depth pieces. I think Caleb Martin is someone who is really good, especially for the money they got him at. Andre Drummond, I think, is one of the best backup centers in the league. I think Jared McCain is going to be a home run of a draft pick. I think he's going to be really good for them. They managed to retain Kyle Lowry and Kelly Oubre, who Kelly Oubre was pretty good for them last year. They did literally everything you could do, I think, to surround Embiid with good talent. They got, in my opinion, the most scalable star in the league. If you need him to be basically KCP plus, he can do that for you. If you need him to be a shot creator,
you're talking about Paul George.
Yeah, he can do that for you. So I think the talent that they gave them to work with is probably the best they could have done. And if you do the best possible case, I think that has to be an S tier.
It is hard. It's hard to pick between S and A for sure.
Well, you have to because you're the deciding vote here.
I say we leave him an S because it's like you got a big free agent signing, which is kind of rare these days. Whether you could argue they should have gone like the KCP role player 3-and-D route and then like have another extra option to add something, but they retained the players they wanted to retain. They kind of went off the players they didn't want to have anymore. They did a sign-in trade. Like a lot of these moves are kind of rare now for what's happening in the NBA. So I think we could give them an S for just like the off season, like as far as just what you're doing. And maybe it doesn't work out the way they see it, but which is probably to win a championship and compete with the Celtics. But that remains to be seen.
One more thing I'd like to add is that they retained all their draft picks for the future, so they can still pivot and trade for guys if they need to.
For sure.
Right. I was worried about whether they'd be able to get quality players in free agency in particular because we didn't know what Paul George was going to do. And whether they'd have to expend some draft capital to sort of do like a sign and trade type type deals or whatever, just to like pry players away from other teams because they didn't have players to trade, right?
Yeah.
But one more argument actually in favor of that for Philly is that they retained good relations with Tyrese Maxey despite having to like make him wait to get his full contract extension. And he took the 5-year rookie max deal without the player option on the 5th year. So it's just a straight 5-year deal, which is the best case scenario for that team given the caliber of player that he is, and the salary cap situation. Another one where I'm like, hey, agent, like, how did you not get this guy a player option given where the salary cap is going to be in the next few years? Just these guys are starting to annoy me. Asher, why don't you do the Cleveland Cavaliers, who actually still have a big question mark with Isaac Okoro?
Yeah, I don't.
Signed
They
to
didn't
restricted
really.
free agency.
They didn't really do much from what I remember. Because
So
didn't
they
they not
extended
sign
Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, which is good. I just don't think they did a ton from what I remember. Like B tier, I guess. Like they didn't. They were one of the teams that didn't sign anybody for a long time, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But like keeping Donovan Mitchell in town.
Did.
Yeah, keeping Donovan Mitchell in town is big for them. I don't remember if they drafted anybody. If they did, they're not coming to mind. Oh yeah, no, they got Tyson. I think Jalen Tyson, who's a really good pick. So like B tier.
Oh, that's right. That was a good pick, I think.
Yeah, they got a good draft pick. Yeah, got a good draft pick. Got a good extension for their star in there. So I think it has to be like B. I don't think they did anything extraordinary, but I think they did pretty good.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Well, I'm gonna give you your second favorite team, the Phoenix Suns.
Oh, okay.
You can talk about Tyus
favorite.
Jones.
Oh yeah, man. So yeah, what their moves were? They got
Tyus Jones.
They signed a bunch
Jones.
of ex-Nuggets and Tyus Jones.
Oh, yeah, Monte Morris,
Mason Plumlee. They drafted Tyler Kolek. Tyler Kolek.
No, they did not get Tyler Kolek. So
no, that was the Knicks.
They traded back, and then I think they traded out of the first round after they traded back with us, if I recall correctly. And then the Knicks picked Tyler Kolek early in the second round, so Phoenix did not get him.
Yeah.
And that made me happy.
I don't like the idea of having these tiny guards on their team, like Monte and Tyus Jones. I get it in theory that Tyus Jones is going to be a good orchestrator and limit the turnovers for them and set up the offense and all that. But I still would rather them like get more defensively sound because they just have nothing. And so as far as like, I would put them lower, but because of the Tyus Jones effect, who I'm not even that high on, I would put him in C because I just am not that big of a fan. They got what
Ryan
Dunn.
Ryan Dunn. Yeah, that's who I looked it up. It was Ryan Dunn.
Oh, okay. So they used that pick.
Who's sort of the Peyton Watson of this draft, where he's a really good defender and not much offensively, and like really good athlete. I don't think he's going to be as good offensively as Peyton is, though.
They also re-signed Josh Okogie on this deal was created to be traded, $8 million contract, not a 4-year deal, but I believe it's a team option in the second year. And then they retained Royce O'Neal also on
$18 million a season.
Okay, so that's a 4-year guaranteed deal, averaging around $11 million a season, and that was because they need to retain him.
Yeah,
but I don't think that you can argue that their bench, their supporting cast didn't get better because it was just god awful last season.
Yeah, it definitely got better, but I also got Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen's contracts mixed up. That's where the 18 mil is coming from. But Tyus Jones is good. Monte Morris is fine. Mason Plumlee is like probably not good at this point in his career. Probably C tier. Like they did get better, but like not meaningfully so enough to be like, they're for sure playoff team. I think they'll probably be like that 6, 7 seed, 8 seed maybe.
Yeah.
And then also they had a very healthy year from KD, and who knows if that happens again. And
yeah, he was really carrying them for that first half of the season. Yeah, so I wouldn't argue with a C, but I do think that given the tools that were available to them, like the Bucks, like it was even worse last year than the Bucks were in terms of the supporting cast, in my opinion. And I think they did about the same increase. So I would say B, but I wouldn't argue with a C.
Well, their lineup makes a lot less sense to me than the Bucks.
That's true. Yeah.
Because like they're starting Tyus Jones, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker with like KD. Like who's going to be the point of attack defender there? Booker, but you don't want to like have him.
Tyus Jones.
Yeah, it's going to be Tyus Jones, Bradley Beal. Like you don't want to put too much on Devin Booker's plate. And
they
like
had Bradley Beal as the primary on Ant in the playoffs. So.
Yeah, which is just insane to me. So it's like what they're the most like pointless team in the league right now, I think. It's like what are they? They're not doing anything.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Okay. So we can leave it at C. That's the hater tax.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think could I
yeah,
maybe suggest a team that would maybe be our first D tier, which maybe could be the Lakers.
Oh my gosh. So the Los Angeles Lakers, they were a first round exit. They were gentlemen swept by the Denver Nuggets, and they drafted Bronny James with your 55th overall pick.
Don Connect.
They lost Torian Prince, and they re-signed LeBron James, and that is all they did this offseason because they don't have any roster spots or ability to do any. Was there something I missed, Asher?
Drafted Don Connect.
They did draft Dalton Connect as well. So
Yeah.
who was the other player that left the Lakers then?
I think it was just Torian Prince. They still have D'Angelo Russell.
No, Reddish is still there.
Oh,
they gave all these guys player options last year with their minimum. So they have Christian Wood still. They have Cam Reddish still.
Spencer Dinwiddie's gone.
Spencer Dinwiddie. That's the other one.
There
okay.
it is, yeah.
That's right. Because he went to the Mavs. That was the other one that we forgot.
Yeah, the Mavs.
So because they were a first round exit, it didn't do anything. I have to give them a D because what are we doing?
I'm just like
I just don't know what they're doing.
They drafted Bronny, which does that help them sign LeBron or something? Maybe would he have signed anyways? Who knows? They did the whole Hurley watch madness. They missed out on him.
They did finally hire a head coach.
They hired
like a
JJ
week
Redick. All the rumored free agents they wanted, they didn't get. It's just like
it sounds like they don't want to spend. They don't want to spend 3 first round picks unless it's like an all NBA caliber player. But we're going to talk about, Mikal Bridges went for 5 first round picks. Like, I just think that they're a bit right. 2 pick swaps, 5 first round picks and 2 pick swaps.
Yeah.
I'm just counting the pick swaps as fake. So even still, I just think they're kind of delusional about the market right now.
They're just giving LeBron a retirement home. And like, I can get that. Yeah. It's fine. They won a title already with LeBron. They're just going to ride it out. Probably another year or 2, and then he'll be retired. And then they'll probably trade AD and reset.
Yeah.
And manage to get a superstar because they're the Lakers.
All right, then. I'm going to throw the Knicks to Asher.
Oh, brother. B tier. I think Mikal does make them better, but I think they overpaid by a pretty significant margin for them. And also losing Isaiah Hartenstein is a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Correct. It's funny because I think if they'd had the same exact offseason and then managed to retain Hartenstein, I would have actually had them as the favorites in the East.
Really?
Or at least co-favorites with the Celtics. Really.
Oh, wow.
Because they're so good. They were so good with once they got OG, right?
Yeah.
I think that the value that Hartenstein added to that team as a connective piece, as like another like playable center, not even like good, which he is, but another playable center when Mitchell Robinson was out, and what he could do to just give them a different look offensively, because sometimes you just have to take Mitch out to kind of break up some stagnation. The chemistry that he had with Brunson and also his defensive value is being a bit overlooked. I kind of don't see the Knicks as any better than some of the other East contenders now, even with OG, even with Mikal, because I don't know. I'm not feeling the vibe as much with the Nova Knicks as I was before.
I think they're still the second best team in the East pretty clearly to me, but I do think that they're not as good as the Celtics. Like the perimeter defense between OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, like they have so many buys to throw at you, which you need when you're under Tibbs, in all fairness, but they have so many bodies that they can just throw out there that like it probably won't matter, like injury wise, and also like the center is the biggest question mark for me, and they still have Julius Randle, which it's like Julius does not fit this roster at all.
Yeah, it's
in my
funny because like
mind.
the kind of player I'd want to replace Julius Randle with, there's not a better version of that archetype than Randle that isn't like LeBron or like Tatum. That's
Yeah,
like
but
a mismatch attacking forward, which
I
they
don't
lack
think.
on this roster otherwise.
Yeah, but I don't think they really need that archetype. I think you just want another like really good role player.
I think they're too perimeter oriented on offense without him is the thing. Not that he's like, I think he's like
Yeah.
just the best option that they could get. Besides maybe trading for like a Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, I think if they did make a trade, they would probably trade for a center and have Hart run the four again. And then if you could get someone to be a Hartenstein replacement.
Asher, why don't you pick the next team for Will?
Let's go with the Grizzlies.
Edie time, baby.
Oh yeah, I have no idea how that's going to turn out, but people seem to be higher on him in the summer league.
They got Brandon Clark back. That was also mid-season. They haven't made a lot of big moves. Like I thought they would get another center, but it seems like they're just going to run with Edie and see like how that works out.
Edie is the starter there.
I just don't feel like I can put them in C because I think they're going to be like in the playoff hunt, and I don't think they did anything to get them out. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is
right.
How are you setting yourself up for the season to like get in the playoffs and compete? And I don't think they did anything to jeopardize that in the offseason. They're just like going back out there and seeing how it goes. The Edie pick could work out kind of well, but it might not.
I think he could be the Marcin Gortat to Jaws John Wall, like where he himself, in my opinion, is not a good player really, but he's big, sets really hard screens, and can roll. And Ja Morant can really help him get like easy. If he frees up driving lanes for Ja and then just rolls, that's an easy like 10 points a game for him. And he's big enough to average like 12, 13 rebounds a game. And then if you get like a block and a half a game, you're having a rookie of the year talk at that point, probably.
Yeah.
And Ja's a great passer. He's going to find him. So if you have somebody who can actually finish, which they didn't necessarily have with the other bigs on that team once Steven Adams went out, like.
To me, I made an Edie video where it's like, I don't believe Edie is like that good, but I'm higher on him now because he went to the Grizzlies. If he went to literally any other team, I don't think really that good of an NBA player. But now I'm like, yeah, he might be starting caliber because of Ja, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
you have
true.
someone that knows how to use him. As long as he can, like, we'll see how he's able to keep up on defense at the pace of the game, all of this stuff. But, the league's getting, like, bigger.
Yeah.
They're not getting slower though, so that's still a question mark for me. But it seems like the Grizzlies are willing to run with it, and luckily for them, they have a 4 in Jaren Jackson Jr., who is an actual stretch 4. Not that his shot is super respected, but like he knows how to play like in that role, and so it's not going to be too big of an adjustment, for them, and they can finally rebound again. So
let's just go to the Nuggets. Let's just get this out of the way.
Yeah, let's get out the elephant in the room. All right, the Denver Nuggets, they lost KCP. That is not great. They signed Dario Saric to a taxpayer Emily. They signed Russell Westbrook to a minimum deal, which I think is that's going to be good value. Like even if he's, mid, like I think the middle, of the range of outcomes here for Russ is still like well above the, minimum value because we need a backup ball handler. I'm going to go with a D here. So I could have graded it more harshly because at least the Lakers didn't do anything to make themselves worse besides losing Torian. But I do think the Nuggets did get worse. I do think that signing Dario Saric in particular is going to be helpful. Just having another player off the bench who can act as that hub offensively. Like we have an opportunity for the bench to at least, I don't know if they're going to be better by net rating, but they might be playing more coherent looking basketball by the eye test just because you have players on this team that are kind of Jokic ball players that can play around a player that knows how to be that hub, if nothing else. The question mark for me is what's the chemistry between Dario and Russ going to be like? But Dario knows how to set a Gortat screen too. Russ knows how to get downhill. Russ knows how to pass. That kind of thing. So I can just kind of see at least the bench working out. But what are the starters going to look like? So I'm going to go with a D here.
Yeah, if there was an F tier, I'd put him.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, where's the F here?
I think I don't know who the other teams would be, but I just want to give myself the cushion of saying top 3 worst instead of just the worst. But I think they had a top 3 worst offseason. Letting KCP walk is just awful business. It's not good. It made the team significantly worse, which like they still are a title contender. I don't want to be all doomer about it. Like they still have Jokic, they still have Murray, they still have MPJ and AG. Like those 4 are good enough to put you into title contention. But they went from someone who you could view as the favorites to come out of the West to like second tier contender in the West, potentially, depending on how you view the Thunder or the Wolves, all those teams. I still think they're in the mix with those teams, but I've seen some people rate them lower than those teams, and I can't exactly blame them.
You guys said it all. I think like partially too is like we're almost looking at this like a little bit in a vacuum as an offseason, like just looking at the moves that they made. How good of an offseason did the Nuggets really need, considering like these 4 great players that we're mentioning? Like obviously you want to have as good of an offseason as you can, but with like what you have to work with and what you can do, what is the realistic like bar you can reach? But that said, like still you're losing KCP, you're doing all these things that are just like even just looking on paper pretty awful.
Yeah, and also the West had an arms race this offseason, and they're the only like contender that got worse. The Thunder got significantly better. The Wolves got better. The Mavs can go either way. Like a lot of teams got just flat out better in the West, and the Nuggets are the only ones that really got flat out worse, at least among the ones that matter.
Okay, Asher. So why don't you talk about the Wolves offseason here?
They drafted pretty well. Terrence Shannon Jr. looks good. I think Rob Dillingham is good. They retained their guys. Should be good.
Basically replaced Slow-Mo with Joe Ingles, sounds like.
Yeah. And I think Slow-Mo is bad.
Traded down to get Dillingham was pretty aggressive.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. I like Dillingham.
Yeah.
I think it's like a B. I don't think they made any big enough moves to land into A, but like they'd be like a B+ in my book. Let's do the Magic, Will.
Oh God. Grace's expertise. Let's give them let's put them in C, since they don't have did not figure out their point guard sitch.
They didn't get one. They actually got rid of every other point guard. And they're like, Jalen Suggs will play 48 minutes of point guard because they didn't re-sign Markelle Fultz. They did draft Tristan De Silva, but again,
actually, I'll give them B because they got KCP. We love him around here.
Yeah,
I think that move can only make them better. But I do think that for a team that needed another point guard, letting go of Ingles and Fultz, not getting another point guard.
I mean, neither of those players are very good, though.
Right.
There's a reason Markelle is still a free agent.
I think Ingles provided a floor for those bench minutes that.
I mean,
it's a combination of Ingles and like Mo Wagner and like those other vets off the bench.
I think they got better.
How to play.
Like they still have Cole Anthony, who's like their backup point now. Jalen Suggs is really, really good. They still have young guys who can come in and improve to help maybe address those issues, like Anthony Black, maybe if he improves there. Paolo is going to be doing most of the ball handling, though. Franz also can handle the rock. They did address the shooting a bit with KCP, which was their biggest issue, in my opinion. And then Jet Howard should come in and help with shooting as well this season. Like, I think they'll look more cohesive offensively. I still don't think they'll be a great offense, but I think they've provided more spacing for Franz and Paolo to operate, and I think that at least deserves a B.
They were right up with the Phoenix Suns in turnover rate last season. So I think the way that you grade this depends on if you think the Orlando Magic's biggest issue offensively anyway was their shooting or the need for a playmaking point guard, a table setter.
They obviously could have used both.
Yes. And they had the resources to do both, right? They had some of the most cap space of the entire in the entire league. And they just used most of it on KCP. And then they retained their guys, basically. They renegotiated and extended Jonathan Isaac. They re-signed Mo Wagner. I think Ingles and Fultz were the only guys who left. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, maybe this means more minutes for Jet Howard, like you say. I know they were in talks for like a Klay Thompson type, but then I was like, why are they doing that if they're interested in if Jett Howard is supposed to be moving into that, off the bench at least, like movement shooter role, like you'd think that would slot in. So yeah, I think a B is fine for me for the Orlando Magic. I just think they didn't address their biggest problem.
But they
they
definitely
didn't
get worse, so I wouldn't put them in C at all. Like, yeah.
They might have gotten worse offensively, but not by a lot. Like that's
I don't like Fultz isn't. I love Fultz. But
it's less. It's less Fultz and more Ingles for me, honestly. Just watching all those games, he was the only one who could really settle the offense down when, particularly, Franz is off the floor.
Yeah.
And we still don't know if Franz's shot is going to come back, if that counts as like part of the off season. Like that hasn't improved clearly if you're looking at all of the Olympic performance, but
okay, so Grace, you can do the Kings.
Oh my gosh. They traded for DeMar DeRozan. They got rid of Harrison Barnes, but they got even smaller. I'm gonna give this, oh my gosh, just because it's DeMar DeRozan and we just don't know how he fits with other good players, I think I have to give this a C, because it's really, they got rid of Davion Mitchell on purpose. Like, I'm not saying that was a bad thing. And it also helped them create some room, but they didn't get anything like good. Like they replaced Davion Mitchell with Jalen McDaniels. They did draft Evan Carter.
Yeah, who's really good.
Yeah.
Having them in the same tier as the Clippers, Suns, and Warriors is whack to me. Like they're more closer to. I think. See, I would be fine if they were a C tier if our C tier wasn't Warriors, Clippers, Suns. Yeah. If we had an F tier, I think Lakers and Nuggets are an F tier. C tier is a D tier, and then they're in C tier because I don't think they have.
Why don't you just move them to like in between B and C?
Sure.
Well.
Okay.
Because I just don't think that they like. I have no reason really to think they're going to win more games than they did last season.
I mean, DeMar helps them. DeMar's better than Harrison Barnes.
Is DeMar going to help them win more games next season?
Yeah. Like, DeMar in the regular season is still a very, very good player.
Is he going to look as good next to Fox and Sabonis? Like,
I think
is he going to have, or is he looking anyway, but the ball will just be in his hands more?
I think you're underestimating the fact that the person he's replacing is Harrison Barnes. He doesn't need to be like an all-star level player to have a positive impact over Harrison Barnes.
Yeah. I think maybe.
But Harrison Barnes at least fit around those other guys. Like, it's more of a fit question for me.
I think maybe we need
also Keegan Murray.
If we moved more teams into A, B might look more appropriate.
No, we're not doing that. I had a team in A, and you guys moved Philly to S. So
that's true.
I'd like to submit the Boston Celtics for an A.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
they kept about the same group of guys. They extended them, and they just had one of the most dominant runs we've seen in a hot minute. So yeah, no, A works fine for me.
Yeah, they extended Drew toward the end of the regular season, so I think we can kind of count that in here. That was the other thing we didn't say about the Knicks offseason, actually. And maybe you can move the Knicks to A because they got Jalen Brunson to take a massive discount and extend early. Derek White's discount wasn't quite as massive. He just extended early, and I think it's still a little bit of a discount, but not crazy. Like, I think it's more reasonable for a role player of his caliber to be like, let me capitalize on the couple of seasons I just had now, and just get that guaranteed money. Okay. They're convinced Al Horford to not retire, et cetera, et cetera. Like, and they're bringing back a championship core. So
let's go for the Spurs. We put them on here. We tried to put on playoff teams, projected playoff teams. Some of these teams obviously might fall out of the playoffs. But the Spurs, I mean, who knows? Maybe they had a great draft. Wemby's coming back for another season. He's going to keep developing.
Did they draft
Stephon
the UConn kid? Yeah, Stephon Castle. They traded back for him, basically, right? Or
no,
they had multiple picks in this class.
They took him at 4. They traded Rob Dillingham.
Okay. They got a bunch of they got a couple of future swaps from the Wolves, right? Because they let the Wolves trade up for them for
2031 unprotected, and then 2029, I want to say.
They got a pick and a swap. They got Chris Paul, so now they have someone who can pass Wemby the ball.
They're not running Jeremy Sohan at point.
No more Jeremy Sohan at point.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit less Trey Jones at point also. They got Harrison Barnes by participating in that sign and trade for DeMar DeRozan. That's just like, I mean, the roster was down so bad. Like, that's just straight upgrades with like playable players.
Yeah.
Would you give them an A then for that?
Nah. You know, they signed playable players. That's an upgrade.
Yeah.
And also, shout out Harrison Barnes for having one of the best nicknames on Basketball Reference, the Black Falcon. That's like he has way too good of a nickname for being Harrison Barnes. But yeah, no, they were solid. Will, what do you think about the Pelicans offseason?
Well, they did get DeJounte Murray, which I feel like not a lot of people are talking about, but the Pelicans are such a weird amalgamation of talent. And I have questions about how they're going to go.
They don't have a starting center.
Yves Missi is probably the starting center.
He's like 6'8".
No, I'm pretty sure
he's listed at 6'9".
Misi's 6'11".
Oh, he's listed at 6'11". Okay.
Yeah. He fits their scheme better than Val. Like, B or C makes sense to me. I don't rate the DeJounte move too highly, but
they could like trade like BI or something at the deadline and then do something. I don't know.
And get what for BI? Like, I don't think anyone's trading anything of significant value for BI.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, where could he go? The Lakers.
back to LA. D'Lo, CJ, DeJounte lineups coming soon.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like LeBron and like players that LeBron would hate to play with. The Missy thing is, I guess they do see him as a starting center. Maybe they think he's going to be their Derek Lively, right? Yeah. Because they let Valanciunas go and didn't sign somebody else. So I guess that's what they're doing.
Should we drop them to see? Was it just such a lackluster and Murray didn't
move
the needle?
They made the DeJounte move, and I think that they did need more creation, but I just don't know. Like, this team is so weird.
Yeah, like DeJounte and BI have way too much overlap offensively. They're both guys who like the rock in their hands, like to shoot contested mid-range shots, and are like good playmakers, not great playmakers.
I don't think that because I don't feel like it was worse than Sacramento, so I can't put them lower. We have 3 teams that didn't actually do a ton this offseason left. So
I actually think the Rockets are A tier.
Oh, okay. Why don't you talk about that then?
Reed Shepherd.
Right.
Reed Shepherd. I love the Reed Shepherd signing. I think that's or not signing. I love the pick. He looks fantastic at Summer League. And then I think he's probably my favorite rookie, at least early on so far. I had him either 2 or 3 on my board. I forget which one. But like he looks someone
amazing in Summer League. And I know you said that Summer League is, whatever, unless you look bad, but I was just like, this kid looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's the exception there. And like, they traded a 2nd-round pick for AJ Griffin, who like I still think could be something decent. Like I like buying low on him. Like they didn't do a ton, sure, but the stuff they did do, I'm like, you know what?
It seems like they've chosen not to extend Şengün or Jalen Green.
Jalen Green, I don't think they should extend. I think this is Şengün's.
They're opting for flexibility, future flexibility.
Yeah, they also got all the Suns picks instead of the Nets picks.
That's right. Holding them hostage.
So they want to get KD, and we'll see where that gets them. But I think they had an A-tier offseason just because of Reed.
All right, then. Let's talk about the Miami Heat. They lost Caleb Barton for less money than it sounds like they were offering, so I don't know what the hell is going on there with those relations. I actually want to talk about them because I really liked the Kel'el Ware pick. I was kind of like, oh, I don't really understand this, like when they first made the decision, because it's not the typical Miami Heat pick. They don't tend to draft for, upside outside of the lottery, and this was like right outside. I think it was like 16 overall, if I recall. But he looked amazing in our Summer League, and I actually think that he could start next to Bam. And I think that's if that ends up happening, that really changes the dynamic of those lineups, because they can actually have size on the floor, like real size on the floor, and maybe have a little bit more offensive juice from that front court, given how sort of anemic the backcourt is, even when they're healthy, which they are often not. They're backcourt players. So I want to give the Miami Heat a it's still a C because I don't see this team being a whole lot better than they were last year.
Yeah.
It's just fun basketball nerd team, I think, at this point. And they didn't extend Jimmy, which I don't know how to grade that. Like, is that good or bad?
As
it's tense.
This basketball nerd, I don't think this is a very fun team. They didn't trade Jimmy, which I think was a mistake. They drafted Khalil Ware, which I think is a good pick, but I don't think he's going to be anything right off the bat. I think he'll be good eventually. And then they did jack and shit. They still have Tyler Hero on the roster, which I don't think they were ever going to move Tyler Hero this offseason because God, who wants that contract? But, they still have him, so that's the merit. Yeah, they just didn't do anything, really. So, C, I guess, is fine.
Yeah, I feel like the expectations for the Heat, should be higher. Like, you got to do something. They try to make these big trades or splashes, and it's just, this is such a rut of a roster.
Yeah, I mean, they did have a move lined up for Donovan Mitchell before the Cavs. Yeah. It was basically done from what I'm aware, and then
when
KD became available, and then they wanted to trade
before.
for KD.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they tried to get on the Dame thing.
Yeah, but they legit had framework for Donovan Mitchell all squared away, and then KD became available, and they tried to go for KD.
All right, let's talk about the Indiana Pacers. Extended Pascal Siakam and
Obi Toppin.
Yeah.
Will, why don't you talk about that, actually?
I mean, I'm not a big Obi Toppin fan. I think this is an insane amount of money for Obi Toppin.
He's a fine role player.
I just sometimes see him on defense, and I'm like, he can't play defense at all. And then the next possession, he does something pretty okay on defense, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
But I mean, he's not a great defender.
Such up and down. And but
they also got Tristan Newton.
I think.
Oh yeah, Tristan Newton.
They did.
Johnny Furphy.
Although he didn't look super impressive in summer league.
Yeah, but again, I don't.
In particular.
I don't take summer league into account.
I know, but you said if someone looks bad, he didn't look bad, but
I don't think he looked actively bad.
Look as good as I thought he would look.
He didn't look like Jalen Pickett. That's basically my tier for does summer league matter? Jalen Pickett, yes, summer league matters. If you're above Jalen Pickett, it's the picket line. If you cross the picket line, then it matters. If you don't cross the picket line, it's fine.
Whoa! This terms for summer league is going to be permanently adopted just because of Jalen Pickett, the picket line.
August 26th, 2024, actually, the picket line. I think they're B. I think they did good to re-sign Pascal. I think they had a couple
on 4 years, right? Everyone thought they would have to give 5, and they managed to do it on 4. And I think that's a win for the team, in a smaller market. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any negative thoughts on their offseason. The one thing I will say is, right before free agency started, there were some rumors that maybe the Pacers were interested in doing a sign and trade for KCP. And I actually thought that could have been he could have been for them what they thought Bruce Brown was going to be.
Yeah.
In terms of that perimeter oriented defensive anchor, who also obviously has the shooting and knows how to, play in this very offensive minded system.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. They didn't do that. Obviously they opted not to do that, which is their prerogative because they have so many guards in this rotation and so many young players. I'm actually, if there's any critique of their offseason is that they didn't do anything to consolidate that, but I don't think they necessarily have to either. Young team just made the Eastern Conference Finals. I think maybe those types of questions might come up by next offseason, but I thought that they did just fine to not get worse and just give the team a chance to marinate a little bit more, especially given the limitations they had after the Pascal trade with the injuries that Hallie had at the end of the season. So,
yeah.
Cool. This is our final tier list. Unless there's any last minute changes, but I think this was pretty well litigated and
I think this looks good,
upon.
And it's normally distributed. These things tend to look, maybe because we're trying to make it fit that way. Asher, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Is there anything that you would like to plug for the audience?
Follow me on Twitter. All my stuff will be promoted there. Check me out on YouTube. I upload a good amount. I'm going to be uploading more once the season kicks in.
Sweet. Thank you for
Awesome.
coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the time.
Over half of you are not subscribed. So if you like our content, please remember to subscribe, like, share, hit the notification bell, leave us a review. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're on all the sites. Get us in your RSS feed. Follow us on Instagram at What's in a Game NBA. And also check out our clip channel for those quick bites of us doing blooperish style things. Sometimes it's just me giggling at things that Will says.
If you have any problems with anything we said during this episode, DM Will on Twitter.
Yeah.
Take it up with him.
Yeah, I
At
will
Will.
gladly take
If you want
your
to at me,
feedback.
just at Will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I may or may not be kind in response.
And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks.